All right, folks, if we could all take our seats, we'll get started. Got a couple of folks walking in the door, so we'll give them a couple of seconds to get seated, and then I will ask my boss, Mike Haney, to come in and make our introductory remarks. If we'd leave a little room on the edges, the next people who come in a little bit late can still sit down. All right, terrific. I'm going to go ahead and get started. Mike, if you'd make our opening remarks. Thank you.
Why, thanks. My name is Mike Haney. I'm the Vice Chancellor at Syracuse University for Veteran and Military Programs. I'm also the Director of the Institute for Veterans and Military Families at Syracuse University. I'll add a few more adjectives. I'm a military veteran, Air Force officer, also a professor of entrepreneurship. And I add those last two because they really do represent the coming together of what I think today is all about. That is an opportunity for us to focus on creating opportunity for our veterans and their families in a way maybe different than the private sector has stepped up in the past. And what I mean by that is part of the sort of vocational transition has been focused on traditional employment, and the private sector has done a remarkable job with regard to creating those pathways to traditional employment. But another path to vocational transition for our service members that has been a well-worn path all the way back to World War II is business ownership. A very significant portion of our transitioning service members and veterans look to business ownership and self-employment as a post-service vocational opportunity. And that community, however, from the perspective of really we have focused our efforts as a community, and particularly across the private sector, has been it's taken a back seat, I would suggest, to traditional employment. And today really represents a turning point relative to this unique opportunity. It's exciting to see First Data and so many other leading private sector companies step up in a way that is really positioned to empower veterans as business owners for the future. And there is a passion and a commitment and an excitement around this new initiative that I think I have not seen for several years related to doing work in this space. So it's exciting to be here. It's exciting to have this opportunity. And it's exciting for me to introduce the first and keynote speaker for the event that we're going to have today. Frank Bisignano is the CEO and chairman of First Data. He is somebody who has made a career as a global leader in the financial services industry and as a technology leader. I know Frank in a different way, and I say that because I know Frank as someone who is authentic and passionate and committed in deep and personal ways to advancing opportunity, advancing economic opportunity, social opportunity, wellness opportunity for our veterans and their families. And it is a great honor and a distinct pleasure for me to introduce Frank Bisignano.
Thanks for the generous introduction, Mike. And I would say we're all very fortunate for the work Mike Haney's done. And what was built up at Syracuse in the Institute for Veterans and Military Affairs, and what we do for the families there. And I feel fortunate to have the opportunity to have worked with him on this. And I think that really leads us to how we get here today. I'd like to first, before we go any further, recognize everyone who has served and every family member of those who served who is here. So I thank you very much. Thank you for your service. It's the most important thing in the world. We also have some founders here with us, and I think it's only appropriate to recognize the founders. IVMF, led by Mike Haney, and it was his doing and his making, and it's been huge and big and impactful. American Express, BP America, KKR, Lockheed Martin, the SBA, U.S. Chamber of Commerce Foundation, Walt Disney Company, Walmart, Sam's Club, Verizon. I know I've missed one or two, but this is a coalition. And I think the coalition is important. And that coalition is what really makes this special, because it's the bringing together of public and private sector to do something that hasn't been done before. I think this is foundational groundwork. And I'd reflect back on the fact that there has been a lot of work done in finding jobs for those who return. And I think we feel this deep obligation and also this deep opportunity for those who served when they come back to give back and have that opportunity. And I've talked about that a lot before. But when I came to First Data, I saw this other opportunity. I saw this incredible opportunity, a platform to help businesses grow business. And with that became a platform to help those who return, those who served, be business people. And I saw a multiplier effect. I thought to myself, well, the best ones to hire veterans are veterans. And if we can put them in business, if we could do something special, if we could have a coalition and partner, and then you have people like Mike Haney's leadership galvanizing around it, the great leadership we have, I believe we have a fabulous team at First Data, led by Dr. Vivian Greentree and a fabulous patriot, Tom Higgins, and bring it all together. I think the commitment we can make is much beyond just jobs. It's careers. The commitment we can make is the opportunity to build a business, entrepreneurs. And so this coalition that we're kicking off and launching today, I think, has more opportunity to put to work veterans than anything else we've ever done. And you look at the partners, you look at the sponsors, you see that there's real might behind this opportunity. And especially the fact that if you look at it, in America today, there's more than 2 million veteran-owned businesses. And we have a deep commitment, and you'll watch over time that we will bring as best as possible at First Data tools and products and offerings that are unparalleled for veteran business owners. We will do things, I believe, that bring technology and opportunity to those business owners. I'd like to point out today is my good friend, Mr. Meeks here. Yes, James Meeks. I point to James. He's the CEO of Move Systems. He's a friend, and I've come to know him. He's had 2 tours in Iraq, a Purple Heart, a Bronze Star, but he's an entrepreneur at heart. And next week, I'm probably saying something I'm not supposed to. Next week, because I don't really read notes they give me, they put things down and I go, okay, I know Meeks. Next week, on the steps of New York City, James will announce that we are taking Move Systems, his company, and employing in the vending of carts, in the carts you see in New York City, the ones that have contained propane and blown up and are high risk, we're bringing technology in. It will be clean energy. It'll be First Data's point of sale system, and we'll take 100 veterans and put them in business. That's what's happening here. We've committed to 500, and we have 100 vets that we signed. John, thank you very, very much for what you've done. He's really the commander of the operation, and in a short week. I think it's important. These are disabled vets, I must tell you also. right? And it's this unique opportunity. I think it's an American opportunity, right? And we envision that there'll be 10,000 carts in New York City, veteran-owned, with clean energy, powered, where we will bring the technology in and we will bring a boot camp and entrepreneurship. It's our job to create the job. It's our job, this coalition, to create the opportunity. I have the fortunate opportunity to run First Data. And I always look at institutions as what they can do and what their platforms can do. And I always also look at the institutions that we must surround them with good leaders that, yes, will run good businesses, but also will figure out how to use this business to help others. And in our company today, here, are a couple. I've talked about Dr. Greentree. I've talked about my good friend and the great American patriot, Tom Higgins. I would point that in this city of Washington, I am blessed and honored to have as a senior advisor and helping us as we go through this coalition and thinking about what we do and how to do the right things, the Honorable Alfonso Jackson, and I thank you, Alfonso, for what you do, cabinet member of this country who served well, who guides us through it. And when we drive this veterans-owned business coalition, it has to be led as a business opportunity for all. And I am very, very fortunate that 2 months ago, Dan Sharon, who's another great American patriot and served this country and knows this business inside and out, has joined us and is the leader of the efforts to help small businesses grow, to help veteran-owned businesses grow, to drive this coalition and to create a different place for those who come back. And I just say to each and every one of you, it is so important to me as a leader to be surrounded by those who have served, whether it's in battle, whether it's in Washington, but to be surrounded by them so they can help guide and lead to the right outcomes. And I'd say there is no better opportunity than putting in your employ those who have these good life skills. To me, education and training is the foundation of success and the success of an entrepreneur's path. And what we've done in combining with IVMF, Dr. Haney, his leadership, and the coalition, we have the opportunity to put in business those who have served. And I think this is an unbelievable opportunity. It has every ounce of us behind it. It's a big idea. It's a big dream. But I go back to a data point. In America today, there are 2 million veteran-owned businesses. And we do have an objective to go out to those who are already in business and bring technology and help them. And you'll hear more about that over time. We want to be a good partner. We want to deliver. But that 2 million gives you the opportunity that it could be 4 million. And I think this coalition, I thank every partner in this. I thank those who have served tremendously. But I think we have the opportunity to do something very, very special with an unbelievable platform. I think it's not possible without the leadership of everybody in this room. Dr. Haney, you're one of a kind, and you've made a huge difference. You've affected more than you can imagine. The companies that we partnered with in this, I thank you. You're much bigger and stronger, many of you, than us, and we feel it an honor to be in your company. And I personally, as an American, stand here in Washington, D.C., and feel humbled and honored to have the opportunity to stand in front of you. And I think that this is an unbelievable platform. I want to make it great, and I thank you for the time here, and thank you for everyone's service. Thank you.
Thank you again. I appreciate that. I'm James Schmeling. I'll be your MC for today as well as a moderator. I'm going to ask the first panel to come up, and that includes Dan Sharon from First Data. It includes Aaron Hazard from Fleshman, Barb Carson from the SBA, and additionally, John Luck from SunTrust. So please, if you'd come up and join us on the stage, and Dr. Haney, if you'd come up and moderate this panel, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Bright lights. I'd like to have a conversation. We have 25 minutes, so it's I'm going to play timekeeper and in addition to my role as moderator. But I'd like to actually start all the way down at the end with you, Barb. Barb Carson is the acting administrator of the SBA for veteran-owned business. And one of the things, and it's a little bit of a touchy subject, but I'm going to put you on the spot.
Thanks, Mike.
That's what are friends for. Especially down where in the city we're sitting in, we spend a lot of time talking about veteran-owned business in the context of federal procurement. And there's a lot of energy around creating business opportunity in the federal space for veterans to pursue government contracts, et cetera. But I think the reality is the data suggests that in truth, only about 10% of veteran business owners actually do business with the government. Why do you think it's important to really refocus this effort or focus this effort in a different way broadly toward Main Street business opportunities?
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's 10% of the business opportunity that's available, and those dollars are not going to increase significantly. I do think that the focus here on the Beltway, it does give us some skills. There are skills that veteran business owners learn seeking those federal procurement opportunities that are setting them up very well to perform in the supply chain in the corporate sector. Looking broader and outside of, we'll call them some of the flyover states too, many, up to 30% right now is the demographic who come from rural areas. So and many veterans return home. About a third stay at their final duty station. The rest are going, in many cases, back to where they left to join the service. And there are great opportunities potentially for them there. So we'll talk later about how we build capacity for them in some of the programs that we do with IVMF and also private sector and nonprofits to get them ready for those opportunities Main Street wise.
John, I'm going to jump to you. Is that okay? We have some of the nation's leading companies that have signed up to be part of this coalition. Can you share your thoughts anyway on what large businesses have to teach and offer small and medium-sized businesses and veteran-owned businesses specifically?
Good question. I'll go the large to small. Large corporations, benefit from having a rich board of directors. They serve as advisors. They bring a lot of industry expertise, a lot of strategic thinking, a lot of strategic knowledge. I think one of the considerations that the small businesses need to continue to be cognizant of is to have a similar type of advisory board, which would often include their banker as well, who would be a business person first, banker second. And those individuals would, in turn, in a very, I think, oftentimes critical stage in a business development timeline, be able to serve that sort of purpose that a board of advisors would for a large corporation.
How do you think, and I'm just going to stay with you with that question for a second, how do you think, in the context of the work that this coalition is going to do, we sort of operationalize that learning pathway?
Operational, I would say that we leverage all of the opportunities that we have when we do provide, whether it's financial advisory, business advisory to small business owners, whether we're leveraging some of the SBA assets that are in the field that we work with a lot, whether it's really anybody that is providing any kind of service to those small businesses. I think just ingraining that as part of the type of advice that we bring to them, I think would be the way to accomplish that.
Dan, I'm going to jump to you.
Okay.
what's exciting to me about this opportunity, and I'll use Frank's term with this platform, particularly as organized by First Data, is I think First Data is in a unique position to play a leadership role in this space because of what you do and who you are and the products and services that you offer, meaning that there's business alignment here. Can you talk a little bit about how, in the context of First Data's product and service offering, you're going to be able to bring to veteran business owners products and services that will essentially position them to compete in a way that makes them look more like large businesses than small businesses?
Will do. I'm sitting next to my classmate here. We graduated together, so we're veterans in business. So I really shape it from a personal perspective. And when I got back from the Gulf in 1991, went two different paths. You can look for a job or you can start a business. And I had no idea about how to start a business, so I went and found a job. But if you look at small businesses, they really need three major things that really get them started. A lot of it is education and understanding of, you go from the veterans community of an operations order, and you're going to a business plan. They need access to capital, startup capital. But they also need what I call infrastructure and technology. And James Meeks and what they're doing in Move Systems is a great example. Most entrepreneurs, and I deal with lots of them, they're really great at what they do, whether it be a cleaning service, whether it be a restaurant, whether it be retail. What they're not good at, and what their expertise is not, is the back office. Okay, how do I handle my payments? How do I handle my payroll? How do I handle my accounting? And all that infrastructure. So we have a fully owned suite. We call it basically a business in a box, and we're focused on providing that to veterans. The person that's a business consultant was a small business owner and veteran. So it's handling that vernacular, that conversation, and also providing that. And we're doing it with the food carts in New York. We also, with veterans and identifying veterans, another great story of a company we deal with is ID.me, and Blake Hall, 7 years ago, was leading patrols in Iraq. He's a veteran-owned business and helping us online identify those veteran-owned businesses. Today, he started with zero a couple years ago. Him and his Ranger buddy, they employ 55 people. 10 of them are veterans. So right there, that's 55 more people working, 10 of them veterans. And so as we extend our technology out and helping those guys run business, that's where we think we can have a major effect, as Frank had talked about.
Yeah. My institute, brand new client. Is Blake here somewhere? No? New client of ID.me. I think, James, have we signed that contract?
Oh, maybe a price come down since we notified them.
Aaron, can you talk a little bit about why do you think it's important for companies like yours to support veteran business ownership?
Yeah, well, it was very simple for us. I mean, we were on the other side. Fleischmann was actually started by two veterans nearly 70 years ago in a small little office suite in St. Louis. People thought they were crazy for starting a PR firm out in St. Louis. And certainly the question is, how can two military guys know what consumer America wants? Well, they managed to convince Emerson Electric, Anheuser-Busch, and many other brands to believe in them. And 70 years later, it's grown into 88 offices. So we've been on the other side of that dream and wanting to do amazing things coming back. And so it's just something we want to support from just that entrepreneurial nature and what it brings to the marketplace. But on the second side, it's just great business for us. For us, it's led to many wonderful partnerships with folks that we might not otherwise have encountered because we took a chance on a startup business. And obviously taking them through the different procedures and practices that large business has can be daunting for a small business. Just getting even into the vendor cycle for any of the major corporations can be difficult. So in our role, a lot of times it's either finding good partners that we work directly with or even just recommend to the folks that we're doing business with so that overall, whatever our achievement is going to be, whatever business goal we're trying to go after is ultimately stronger. And what we've found with a lot of our veteran business partners is they're fearless. They are willing to get out there and try something. They may not know exactly how they're going to get there, but they're going to move and they're going to make it happen. And part of it's just fun for us too to be along for that ride.
Yeah, fearless, right, Justin? I'm going to go off my my pre-approved question, so hopefully it doesn't scare anybody here.
We're fearless.
So I'll throw this out for anybody to take on, or multiple folks to take on. What does good look like here? You know, so if we pull this off, what does good look like? You know, I heard Frank double the number of veteran business owners in America as a potential outcome. What, in your mind, what does good look like for anybody?
I know this is something we've debated, and I don't want to put a number on it, but it's creating real opportunities. It's not that we all want to sit around and have wonderful conversations about how great veteran-owned and military family-owned businesses are. It's creating real opportunities, engaging folks in actual business paths, lining them up with great long-term partners, and really moving the needle. When we all got together and even just discussed what this effort would be called, we wanted this to be about action. We wanted this to be about real, verified opportunity.
I would add, I'm certain that there are some hard metrics that would be useful to provide, feedback with respect to what does good look like. But speaking from a sort of career customer-facing banker, I would imagine that there could be a process whereby we reach out to veteran small business owners and ask them what has the impact been of the coalition for them. What have we done to help them, and take that feedback and bring it into our own process and just make it a continuous improvement.
I would add changing the national dialogue as it relates to veteran-owned businesses. And you look at what happened with the 100 Jobs mission that started with a few companies focused on making 100,000 veteran hires.
Yep.
They're well over 200, I think it's 212,000 today. They've got a new target of 300,000. And many, many more companies have joined. So what's good for me is not the people that have started today, and I think we have tremendous companies here. As Frank said, we're honored to even be at the table with some of these brand names of these well-respected leaders in this company and just getting this started. But as this expands out and changing the national dialogue about what we can do for those for veterans, and it's not just a feel-good thing, it's actually good business. And it makes sense. If you look at small business in this country, that's where the employment's coming from, that's where the innovation is coming from. So it's not just doing something just for the veterans, it's actually good for business, and I think overall, I think it's great for our country.
Barbie, you want to take a shot at it?
I would say I am going to amplify your point. $1 trillion in receipts currently in veteran-owned businesses. That's significant. So you're making a good business decision here. It's also the right, it feels like the right thing to do. Something that I want to see is that the veterans and military spouses, this is part of the community. We veterans and military spouses come from these communities. It's joining again. It's coming to the next phase. It's natural, and we vets, military spouses, empower business in the United States. This is one way to do it. You're pathfinders in giving this opportunity in this particular way to do it.
So I think what I'm going to do to wrap this up is give everybody, 2 minutes to sort of say their piece, if you will. Because this idea of changing the paradigm, I'll set this up by saying when I left military service in 2006 and decided I wanted to be a college professor, I weaseled my way into a transition summit at Walter Reed. And at the time, the extent to which we were talking about veteran business ownership to transitioning service members, I think there was the TAP manual at the time had one paragraph on page 282. I think there was a little buried section that said, and oh, by the way, in the context of all this other stuff, maybe you can go out and be a business owner. And I, as I said, weaseled my way into this transition summit and spoke to this group, about 200 soldiers at Walter Reed, about business ownership. And some of you in this room have heard this story, but after I finished, I got yelled at by a vocational counselor who basically said, never come down here to talk to them about business ownership. It's too hard and they're going to fail. And how far we have come, talking about changing the paradigm, how far we've come, that was only 2006. And I think it's exciting to see an opportunity like this be set up for this and future generations of veterans. So, with that as context, maybe I'll let each of you just take 2 minutes and sort of provide your final thoughts on where we're heading in the vision for the future.
Well, if you want to start from this side?
Absolutely.
So I'll take that. And the statistics and the numbers show it. The 5-year mark, the success rate of veterans-owned business, 1 out of 4 veterans is interested in small businesses. And what I found is dealing with small business and veterans, they're looking for a hand, not a handout. They're looking for a hand. They're looking for an opportunity. Just like I got an opportunity in 1991 when I came out of the service and had no idea what I was going to do. That's what they're looking for. So I would summarize it. It's the right thing to do for our veterans. It's the right thing to do for your business. And I think it's the right thing to do for our country.
John?
Yeah, I echo everything Dan said with respect to alignment with the country. It's the right thing to do, and I'll sort of answer it on a corporate and a personal level as well. We have a purpose statement that we light the way to financial freedom, and that is perfectly consistent with the goals of the coalition. We are very passionate about making sure that we have not only products, services, but also financial literacy, education, to really make an impact on the communities that we operate in. And on the personal level, Dan and I were sort of comparing notes out here before the panel. So we're classmates. I have a brother who's a classmate, and my dad fought in World War II. And when I go back and I think about what my transition point was like, what Dan was just saying, it was a transition point for me, and I had a young family, bills to pay, and I wanted to be able to be in a position to be able to basically, help somebody else going through that same transition and those same challenges.
Erin?
Yeah, I mean, one of the points I think I want to end on is we've intentionally included military family-owned along with veteran-owned. And as a former spouse who was forced over and over to reinvent myself in every market that we ended up in, that was something that was important to me as we moved along, because when we talk transitions, yes, there's the separation from service, but for sometimes caregivers, for the military families themselves, they are in a cycle of redefining it and starting over a lot of times. But what also makes them great is they know how to go into a market, figure out who the influencers are, make all the friends that they need to move things forward, which makes them a great set of folks to be opening these businesses in communities across America. I know when I moved from DC to San Diego, I was amongst a set of spouses that were probably the most credentialed folks you could ever meet because they'd pursued the degrees, they had ideas, they just needed someone to help them get that path laid out, to figure out how to get in with the companies they need to get into. And to your point, that hand that they needed is now there in all across the country. And so I'm excited for what remains for that.
Speaking of a military spouse and a veteran, Barb Carson is also an Air Force colonel in her other life. I think you
My
just
other
finished
life.
reserve duty, right?
Yes.
You can probably speak to both those perspectives, the spouse perspective as well as the veteran.
I can, and that's where, from my perspective in this role at SBA, that I want to see the paradigm shift, is that I'd like to see people preparing earlier. Because this is a great opportunity. And someone said it to me the other day that military service is an incredible internship or apprenticeship. It prepares you for things. And if we could stop seeing it as that's a segment and next you need to do this completely different thing. Studying and performing well in nuclear command and control didn't prepare me exactly for being right here at this moment until you look a little deeper. I can make tough decisions without all the information I want to have, and I can be sure of it, and I'm going to move on from there. I think those are the kinds of executive skills that the combat arms bring to the table, that we here in this coalition, you know that already. You already see the talent, but I'd like from where SBA is working with partners to start, and Colonel Rock is here, Soldier for Life, they see the value too. You've got to start talking about what is next. Military duty is not forever. You have to have another successful career ahead of you, and we want to be there as part of that. So that's a paradigm shift that I want to talk about more today, too.
James, how much more time do I have?
You actually have as much as...
Okay, so I'm really going to go off.
You're really
script
going
in a
off the
big
script.
way.
Oh, Phil Donahue.
Yeah, and when I say that, I'm going to offer up some questions. Does anybody in the audience have any questions to ask this group? See, now, like I said, I've really thrown folks off. I see the looks on some faces over there, but I think it's worth having a dialogue here. What we're trying to do is something new and different, and I think pretty exciting, and for us to talk at you all day. There's an opportunity to learn from all of you as well. So does anybody have any questions that they'd like to ask of this group? Yes, sir. Oh, yes, sir.
Gee, what a So I have kind of a two-part question that's related. So if you're a veteran, you've been out of the service for, say, 3 years, 5 years, how do you tap into the coalition? What's your entry point? Is it through IVMF, Entrepreneur Boot Camp? Is it through SBA? How do you do it? And the second part of that would be, is the military going to allow people who are transitioning but still on active duty, is the military going to allow those who are transitioning but still on active duty to tap into this too officially?
So I'll answer part of that question, then I'm going to look right down there at my government friend at the end. Later on in the program, you're going to hear about a set of resources, websites, et cetera, that represent those entry points, and James is going to talk about those a little later on. I'll let Barb talk about the transition and the connection to our federal partners.
Thank you. And so my 5-minute speech later can be much shorter now. We'll just get this out. And I'm glad you asked that, because we are at the moment most known for the work that we're doing with IVMF and our resource partners at Small Business Administration to reach the transitioning veterans and those military spouses. It's huge. We've reached 25,000 so far, and that's a big number. But it doesn't reach everybody. So those who have left the service, and so we're making announcements ahead of time, right, today? So
Yeah,
we'll
sure.
just keep,
We're
let's
winging
just
it at
keep
this point.
going.
I mean,
2 announcements today.
No, it's good. It's something that we tested last year with support from the White House as well. It's called Boots to Business Reboot. And we did it in 12 cities. We reached almost 1,200 veterans. And we found a model that's going to work. So it takes it off the military installation. It's open to veterans, military spouses, and we're looking at all eras. We won't dive into it today, but there are retired military who are reaching the end of where they want to own their small business and they want to transition it to another veteran. There are all kinds of opportunities we're seeing here to give them the technical assistance from legal to marketing and beyond to make those kind of things happen. So absolutely the connection, you'll see it in the government, but we can't do it without the partnerships that we've built with First Data, IVMF, Blue Star Families, and many others.
Yeah, and I'll echo something that Barb said. I think the story that I told earlier about my experience at Walter Reed, and when I've said we've come so far, quite honestly, I never thought we'd be in a place where we now have, as an official pathway out of the military, boots to business. You know,
Right.
a business ownership preparation program and pathway out of military service. If you look across this landscape, there has never been a time where there have been as many training and educational resources positioned to support this community in business ownership than, without question at any point over the last 50 years, that we have not had the resources position that we do today. For me, this coalition is the last piece of that puzzle, because it allows them to enact
Right.
that opportunity in ways that will support both venture creation and venture growth over time. Anybody else? Nobody? Yes, sir. Thank you.
So, Kyle Kidd with Winter Word Project. I appreciate the point on having some metrics to say, are we making progress? One of the things that I was interested in when you guys were discussing this is the aspect of the good idea, right? So when you think about when you think about the veteran who has that entrepreneurial idea, actually the process of vetting that idea, before actually getting to these other steps where they need capital, they need all these other things, right? So what are your thoughts, from an expertise perspective of that first step of, hey, I got this great idea, and taking it to market?
I think that's almost like Shark Tanking it, if you will, right? Yeah, I think you've hit on something huge. Perhaps speaking back to the fearless, some may be a little too fearless at times, perhaps. I think that there would be a great opportunity there as long as we would assemble the right sort of eyes and ears, to help vet that opportunity. And of course, nobody's perfect, but I think it'd be probably a good, first step, filter. I know that there are some existing tools and opportunities out there that can be leveraged, but I think that's a great idea.
If anybody else, I have strong feelings here, so I'll wait until everyone else.
No, go ahead.
I mean, I think the importance of the point you made cannot be overstated. One of the things about this particular work, in a way that's different than traditional employment, is there is a lot of personal risk here. And the idea that because someone has an idea that they think they can build a sustainable venture around, 9 times out of 10, and I literally mean 9 times out of 10, that initial idea is probably not one that has legs. And this is what we see in the context of, we've been running entrepreneurship training programs for vets now for going on 8 years up at Syracuse University. And one of the best outcomes that I see in the context of those programs is when someone engages and walks in the door with, this is the business I'm going to build. And by the end of that experience has an entirely different focus, because they realized, as a consequence of the education and the training and the mentorship and the exposure to experienced successful entrepreneurs, that they have to pivot here and turn here and look at a different market segment and maybe situate the business in a different industry, and all that's great. My big fear, to be entirely candid, my big fear is that, and it has been in the context of, as we're pursuing more resource opportunities, access to capital, et cetera, is that we keep those connected to the supportive educational training resources required to make the most of that investment, if you will. There's lots of talk, for example, about new access to capital programs that, and I go back and forth in this one. There's people talking in this town about, for example, GI Bill benefit and letting veterans use GI Bill benefit for to launch a business. I'm for that if it's connected to some kind of training program that supports the kind of smart decision making that you're talking about, but there's a lot of personal risk here. You talk about traditional employment, we see a lot of attrition, first job attrition among veterans in the context of traditional employment. They're learning. That attrition is actually, it's not a great thing for the companies, honestly, but it's a great thing for the vet, because they're learning what it means to work in a particular industry, a particular field. In business ownership, that you don't want them learning that way. You want to position resources around them so that they can make those smart choices. And it is one of the challenges and risks in the context of doing this work.
I'd add to that, and veterans are very used to a continual training cycle, an education cycle. It's the same thing with small businesses or starting a business. And you need your initial training, education on how to do it, but you also need a support structure as you go forward. Somebody had talked about an advisory group earlier on. Continual education and resources. And when I got out in 1991, the WWW, the World Wide Web, was just getting started. Today, we have the ability to really leverage technology and the things we're doing with Syracuse and other institutes of higher learning to really, really envelop these veterans business with a continual education cycle and resources as they continue to go through that evolution of every business.
Okay, I've been told I have time for one more question. None? Okay, then I guess help me thank this panel.
Thank you very much to the panel. I have a couple of requests of you. If you would all go over to the opposite side of the stage of where I'm at and give up your microphones to the gentleman over there who mic'd you, that would be great. And then the second panel that includes everybody except Craig Hopkins, if you would also go over there to be mic'd, Kevin Preston and Nicole Stoner and Lee Sorensen, if you'd go over to be mic'd, you'll be ready when we make that next transition. We have a slight change in the agenda. Instead of Debbie Akins, we're going to have Craig Hopkins, who's the Senior Vice President of Global Service Delivery at USAA, who will make a couple of moments of remarks. You've got about 5 minutes, Craig, if you could join us up here. Thank you for joining us.
First of all, I need someone to tweet Craig quoting Barb, who said, "Military service is an incredible internship apprenticeship." That just struck me to heart when I heard that. And so if nothing else, I'm going home with one tidbit. So I am Craig Hopkins, and I am absolutely honored to be here with you for a few moments today. I represent USAA and 11 million members who have served our country honorably, their military spouses and their families. And I know many of them are you in this audience as well. So just for my own selfish gratification, can I see any USA members in the audience? God, I love that. So I always start off with a thank you for your service, whether you served yourself or you're the family of someone who has, and absolutely thank you for your business. And if you have any complaints, my partner Debbie is here for you over after with the meeting. So USAA is a leader in the military community because of our mission. We have declared we are here to ensure the financial security of our members and their families. And part of that is being part of this coalition as we go forward. So I'm a Coast Guard veteran, enlisted, and I remember the day when I turned in my final day and received my DD-214 and walked back to my local area and had no idea what I wanted to do in my life. I remember when my wife joined the Navy as a young as a young ensign, occupational therapist, and after 11 years turned in her shoulder boards and didn't know what she wanted to do with her life and went from being a military officer to a stay-at-home mom overnight. I remember being a military spouse, following her for 11 years and having to give up employment everywhere I went and start over again, even though I was the man, and I thought that wouldn't be the problem. And I specifically remember being in Virginia Beach, Virginia, and having a headhunter tell me he could help me get employed. And that $2,000 that I scraped and scraped went absolutely out the window. And I got embezzled, if you want to think of it that way. And so I remember all these things from my history. And when I got to USAA, I had an incredible opportunity to help stand up a supplier management function that wasn't just about minority-owned and women-owned, which is absolutely important in our portfolio, but it was to focus on hiring vets and helping vet-owned and military family-owned businesses. So I'm absolutely proud to be here today because we were given one goal by the CEO of our company, General Joe Robles at the time, who is now retired. But he said, "Craig, you got one goal. I want to make sure every vet who has ever served and their spouse has a meaningful career. And whether we hire them at USAA as that part of that career, or we go help them through organizations like Hiring Our Heroes and some others to get employed, or we take part in a coalition like this to help those who want to transition out of the military into a small business, get them careers." And I heard somebody say is give them the opportunity for that career as we go forward. So we're actually taking that one step further as well. We as USA are looking for the opportunity to create buyer relationships with these small businesses as well. So once established, how do we help them sell their services not only to USAA where they're needed, but to many of our partners in our network, some of you who are in the room here as well, so they have the opportunity to compete against some of the bigger suppliers that we work with today. So transition's important as you come out of the military, but I also think as important is to find those well-run small businesses and give them the opportunity to sell their goods. So what are we doing at USA? We're looking for like-minded companies that understand what it means to serve, know what it means to put members first, as they run their business and who continue to want to give back to the military community themselves. And we all know that vets hire vets. Military spouses hire military spouses. That's how you give back. We also want to set the example for other companies in our industry and help them that understand that hiring and working with military family business isn't the right thing to do. It's good business. And we heard that as well. We've constantly proven that vets and spouses that we've hired into USA, by the way, we've hired 9,600 vets and military spouses since 2006, since we made the commitment to do this. We hired 1,500 alone last year. 31% of all our new hires at USAA are vets or spouses. And I have turned to, well, thank you. And I've turned to our suppliers and I've asked them to do exactly the same thing. Whether they're on our accounts or not, it's good business. They know how to react, they know how to team, they know how to run. So do that, and we help them in any way we can. So I'm very proud to be part of this as well. And we advocate for these folks, creating opportunities to join our network all the time. Now, we have a long way to go at USAA about building up our network of vet-owned and military family-owned suppliers, but we're committing to do that as part of this coalition. So, we can't do this on our own. That's why we're here. So I'm going to ask all of you specifically for help in 3 areas as we work through this. One is we have to move from beyond traditional military hiring, and we need to really start to talk about how we encourage our suppliers and our buyers of services to reach out to these folks who are military vet-owned businesses and military spouse-owned businesses, reach out to them and help them compete to sell their services and their products. The second is we need to encourage all businesses to expand their pool of third-party suppliers and focus specifically in these areas and encourage them to help them compete as they sell their services. And lastly, I personally ask you to get personally involved with these folks. I think if I'm going to do it from memory, the thing I heard up here is what these folks need are education, and I'll put mentorship with that. They need capital and they need infrastructure. The number one thing I hear from those who are starting businesses, whether vets or not, is mentorship and personal involvement. Help me through understanding what this is going to mean. Connect with me with people who have done this before. Show me when it gets bumpy. It's still going to be bumpy, but it's going to be okay before I decide to quit or I decide to do something else. So I personally ask you to get involved, not with just the coalition, but the individuals in this coalition that we're here to help. How can you mentor? How can you help the entrepreneurs? How can you help these buyers as we go forward? And I know we can do this together because we can't do it alone. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that. Our next speaker is Sarah Rogers, who's a Director of Federal Government Relations from Walmart, and I'd like to ask her to come to the stage to make a few remarks to you as well. Thank you.
Thank you, James. It's a privilege for me to be here to represent Walmart and Sam's Club this afternoon, and we're honored to join this coalition. This year marks the 150th anniversary of President Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address, just up the street, in which the president pledged to care for him who shall have borne the battle and for his widow and his orphan. Walmart is doing our part, and we're committed to helping veterans and military families through job opportunities and support for programs that provide the job training, transition support, and education that they may need. In 2011, the Walmart Foundation pledged $20 million through 2015 to help veterans and their families with job training, transition support, and education. After completing this commitment a year early, the Walmart Foundation pledged an additional $20 million through 2019 to support veterans' employment and transition programs. We are grateful for the sacrifice that our nation's veterans have made in service to our country, and we're honored to have the opportunity to employ them, to learn from them, and to support them in every way that we can. In January of 2013, in an effort to grow U.S. manufacturing and encourage the creation of U.S. jobs, Walmart announced it would buy an additional $50 billion in products supporting American jobs in the next 10 years. If you're ready to join the thousands of businesses that proudly call themselves Walmart and Sam's Club suppliers, we're encouraging veteran-owned businesses to apply for our U.S. Manufacturing Summit, which is a 2-day open call event on July 7th and 8th in Bentonville, Arkansas. Here, we offer the unique opportunity to meet with our buyers across our formats. We'll facilitate meetings for current and potential suppliers with key state economic development officials with knowledge of U.S. manufacturing locations. Additionally, we'll provide an array of workshops on doing business with Walmart. U.S. Army Captain Sam Walton founded Walmart over 50 years ago, and from that humble beginning, our relationship with veterans has grown and strengthened. It's our honor and duty to support our men and women in uniform, not only when they're on the battlefield, but also when they return home and transition to civilian life. We believe veterans and military families represent our largest, diverse, talent-rich pool in the world and an essential segment of the next 50 years at Walmart. Thank you so much for being here.
Going to transition into the second panel now, so I'm going to ask our panelists to join me on stage. We have on this panel, it's focused on supply chain inclusion. So you've already heard from Craig Hopkins, who is the Senior VP for Global Service Delivery at USAA, Kevin Preston, who's the Director of Veterans Initiatives at the Walt Disney Company and a longtime colleague, Nicole Stoner from American Express, who's a new colleague, and Lee Sorensen, who's been doing work with us from Lockheed Martin for a long time, teaching in those initial veteran entrepreneurship programs that Mike Haney talked about earlier. So I'm looking forward to having some discussions with each one of you. So I'm going to actually open up my iPad and make sure that I ask the right questions of the right parties, because we actually did discuss all of these ahead of time. So I guess first question is to anybody on the panel, how can veterans and military family members access the supply chain opportunities that are in your companies, whether they're to supply products and services for use by your businesses or for resale by your businesses?
I'll take that first,
Thanks, Lee.
James. It's always intimidating for small business to approach a large business. So we hope to make it a little bit easy for those businesses. First, it's a website, go figure, right? But on the website, there's a plethora of information, and one of the things is a point of contact. You can actually dial a number and get a human being who cares and wants to help you. There are small business liaison officers, and they're incentivized to help walk the folks through the wicket of how to get in touch with the right people to make a sale.
So you've made sure that you have those opportunities available and easy for anyone to access and take a look at.
Absolutely.
Terrific, thanks. Next, Craig, Kevin?
Sure, I'll go ahead and jump in. The Disney program we have is called Heroes Supply Here. You know, surprise, surprise, we've got a brand name for it. The companion piece of that on talent acquisition is called Heroes Work Here. So on the Heroes Work Here page is an external facing page for veterans. On that page, you'll find a section for Heroes Supply Here, much like my colleague, information, name, and contact, and lo and behold, it's me. So they can go there and find Kevin Preston, and we will help them through the process.
Fantastic. There was an earlier question that was directed to Mike Haney about how veteran-owned businesses will be able to connect with this. And that's actually one of the working groups that we'll be putting together, is to make sure that we make it very easy through the Coalition's website to connect to all of the partners' websites if they exist, or to the key contacts if that's their preference, to the places where those RFPs are out and existing and so on. So we'll be doing that collaboratively to make sure that those are all reachable. Do any of you have educational opportunities for prospective suppliers to learn about what your companies want to buy or how to access your supply chain? Do you teach and train some of this? Are there opportunities at any events that you host or other things?
So yes, for American Express, we do a lot of outreach, we do a lot of education, so we kind of take it out in addition to the resources we have on the website, like everyone else does.
Okay.
I would say that for the suppliers that are already in our base, we have a summit annually where we share a lot of that information digitally, and we also have a physical summit where we do awards, and that helps out. For new prospective ones, you have the same kind of registration type of function where you can categorize through, and you can see the types of services we're looking for and match yourself up. It still requires a human being afterwards to make that final phone call and help educate about where the needs are.
Fantastic. I just learned recently about something that Walmart is doing I didn't know about before they started talking to us on this coalition. And there's a manufacturers summit that happens in July in Bentonville where they do education and some mentorship and some opportunities to interact with buyers. And so I think there are a lot of those kinds of opportunities that exist in the private sector supply chain, and just making veterans aware of what those are, I think, is an initial first step. So that's another piece of work that we'll be doing as a coalition, is sharing what those opportunities are, where they are, and how to find those.
James, if I could just add, it's important to focus some of that training exactly on what it takes to make the sale. So one of the things we've done is on our website, but offers specific things on how to write a winning proposal. You know, which businesses do you want to be connected with our corporation, because it has a broad array of products and locations, and the SBIR program from the government, and how you can be involved in that, mentorship, ethics. So there's a whole series of training, and we try, when they make that first connection, to get them to look at those resources and use those, because it'll help get us on a common vocabulary.
I think that that's a very important point, and it's one that you've made during our entrepreneurship boot camp for veterans with disabilities when you've been talking to our veterans who are going through that. That's another opportunity that we have here in this, is because we're aligning with the Small Business Administration's Boots to Business and Boots to Business Reboot, we're able to reach a lot of veterans and prospective business owners as they're in transition or a long time after they've transitioned with those kinds of resources and terrific instructors. We're doing that today, for instance, through our VetNet platform on Google+. So this is streaming on VetNet live right now so that veterans can look at this and hear from people like yourselves. So thank you for that.
There's one thing I want to toss in on this. There's another piece of this in the supply chain at Disney, and especially if you're working on the park side, which is a guest-facing entity, as opposed to ESPN or ABC. But there's an awareness of culture of Disney and what Disney does in the parks, what it does with the guests, and the role suppliers play in that guest-facing side. So it's a bit of a wrinkle, and we try to take time to educate on, here's what the parks does at Disney, here's how important our guests are to us, and quite often here's your intersection with the guest in places you may not know that you're intersecting with them. So it's kind of another piece of company education that we offer.
Is that coming out of your experience teaching and training your employees how to be customer facing and the importance of those relationships? Is that where you've learned many of those things?
It really is. I mean, the culture at Disney is an integral piece of how the company works, and we don't divide our suppliers from that culture. I met with a company 2 weeks ago and basically walked through, once again, this is the park side, but here's how you're going to bump into our guest in the parks. You may or may not know this, but you're going to have intersections with them, and you are a representative of the Walt Disney Company at that time, regardless of wearing the name tag or not. So once again, awareness of culture, awareness of environment is posturing them for success in this process.
So there's a business purpose here that goes along with all of this.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask a question of USAA and American Express. Can you tell me why you would encourage veterans and military families to consider being part of the supply chains of your companies, and why these are business opportunities for your companies?
So for American Express, our buying culture is aligned with our corporate value proposition, and we like high value, high quality relationships. We like long-term relationships. We're comfortable with those. So we treat our suppliers like partners. So for the buy side, our suppliers are actually involved and they're engaged. They're working directly with business unit buyers, so they have the chance to make a difference for a business, which is a kind of important thing we find in those long-term relationships. We are also a much more decentralized procurement organization. So Lockheed Martin is going to be a lot more centralized than us, while Disney is probably more centralized than us. So you're actually working directly with our businesses.
Fantastic, thank you. Craig?
Well, think of this odd market niche that USA has in this question. The vet-owned the vet-owned business or the military spouse-owned business is also a member. You're selling your services to a company of which you're an owner. Why would you ever ruin that? Why would you ever do anything dishonest to that? Why would you take advantage of that? I hope, right? But I think the reason that works in our particular case too is they also know, as a member and as a military, from their military experience, what our other members or consumers in that situation are going through. And so it's a complete synchronization of that experience, I think. So now you have core values that you've learned in the military. You bring those core values to USA as a supplier, just like we would as an employee, and you provide products and services to serve your own sisters and brothers who have served just like you. Why would that go wrong?
Well, I think that's a terrific lead into my next question and almost an answer for it, and that is there a competitive advantage for businesses and industries to engage with veterans and military family-owned businesses?
And I'll just say
I think
yes.
you just said yes. So what else do you see as competitive advantages? Anybody else want to elaborate on why these are the kinds of businesses that you want to do business with? Go ahead.
So I think for us, what we have seen with our veteran-owned businesses that we do work with is that the armed forces kind of teaches you accountability, and it teaches you the value of a high-trust relationship and kind of how to use that and how to leverage that and how to continue to make that work. So we find that veteran-owned businesses perform very well with us. It just makes sense.
Terrific. Lee?
Continuing with that theme, we like to think we never forget who we work for, and it's the women and men in uniform. They're our customer, and they have an innate sense of mission and a sense of urgency around that mission, and that just really facilitates good business with our company because we're all on the same page. We know what the mission is, and we're working hard to that mission.
Great. And Kevin?
You know, I know you can't see this, but just nod your head politely and pretend like you see this, okay? What this card is this is the 5 branches of the military and the values of each branch on there. And I use this card for teaching, and I talk about values in the military. And when I teach non-military people, you know, these are words on a page, but they are not. These are how veterans live their lives. These are how they live their lives while in uniform, how they live their lives when they take off the uniform, and it's how they run their businesses. And when you look at characteristics or values such as integrity and ethics and courage and excellence in all we do, those are the same things Disney looks for in a supplier. It's a very easy transition to make to say, they did this in the military, they do this in their personal life, and this is how they run their business today.
One last point, I think mission and values, I think, are by far the most important things. But the third one I want to add is this concept of teamwork. You learn in the military to rely on your buddy. You learn what teamwork is, and there's not a supplier-buyer chasm in these relationships. There's a teamwork component that always comes in. They want to be part of the team, and as long as you want them to be part of the team, they're eager and ready to be there. And you don't have that with every supplier I have in my portfolio.
Great, thank you very much. Those are really very useful. So we've already heard from you why USAA is participating in this coalition. I'm going to go to you after this panel. So I'd like to turn this to American Express and then to Lockheed. Why are you participating in this coalition?
Because it's a smart thing to do. Because we like high-value relationships, and this is the kind of high-value relationship that we can really see becoming part of, growing with, making a difference with, and so we like to continue to do that. I am always happy to have more diverse suppliers. This is a great way for outreach and for education, so it just makes sense.
Terrific. Business reason.
Well, it is a fundamental business reason. We have a major commitment to men and women in uniform as our customers, veterans, their families, both through transition and in the community. And whether it's our hiring practice, business practices with the supply chain, our philanthropic activities, or volunteer services, what we see is that anything that will help them is going to help our economy, and it's obviously good for our corporation.
Great. I have one last question before I go back out to the audience, and that is, why would veterans want to do business with your companies? What is it about your companies that's going to attract them for their business purposes to work with you? Anyone?
I'll go ahead and start. So I look at the veteran space as a pretty broad environment. My colleague touched on it a minute ago. There's elements in veteran space of talent acquisition. There's diversity, corporate social responsibility, supplier diversity. All these pieces are in that veteran environment. And if you kind of start looking at the companies out there, you can kind of start seeing the ones that are piecing this whole thing together and working across all fronts. The thing particular to Disney, I think the neat thing that it offers, the opportunity it offers for a veteran, is to get into the media space. Now Disney is a media and entertainment company. Yes, we have a couple of theme parks, but the primary push of Disney is media and entertainment. And that's a unique place for veteran businesses to come in and offer talent across the Walt Disney Company, at ESPN, at ABC, at the studios. And then we have the parks and all those segments. So it's a pretty niche area. I think that's kind of new, that veteran landscape for the business owner.
Great, thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to think we're a very veteran-friendly and family-friendly business. We speak the same language. Many of our employees have worn the uniform. And back to the mission that we're directly impacting those men and women who are still serving in uniform. So I think there's an affinity with veteran businesses, and we build up a broad portfolio of mechanisms to facilitate and make it easy to do business with our company in the veteran community.
Great, thank you, Lee.
I think the obvious one I've already stated is the ability to continue to serve our members, even as a supplier, if you want to think of that. But I think what I want to offer back is respect, right? We talked about nobody wants a handout, they just want a hand. And so what we're really offering is respect for what you're doing in your business and giving you the opportunity to let your business grow, and we will help you do that.
Fantastic, thanks. All right, terrific. I'd like to go out to the audience, and I have a question right here. And there's a microphone on its way, making its way over.
Hello, I'm Rick Yost with veteranslist.us. In a recent veteran forum, last Veterans Day actually, I heard a supply diversity individual from one of the largest hotel chains in the United States, well actually in the world, state on stage that we want to do business with veteran-owned businesses, but we can't find them, all right? This perked my ears up, obviously. Veterans List, I've got 130,000 veteran-owned business profiles on my website. But my question to you is, I've heard you talk about, hey, come to our website, apply here to get into. Are you doing any marketing out to veteran-owned businesses to draw them in? Like you said, it is intimidating to talk to one of the large businesses, and it seems like many times it goes into a black hole. What are you doing on your side to market to the veteran-owned businesses to come into the fold?
I'll let each one of these folks answer for themselves as well, but I do want to say that that is actually one of the purposes of this coalition, is to make veterans aware of how to approach businesses in the private sector, what the opportunities are, and to do that far ahead of transition where we can, and for others who already own businesses to think about how to expand those markets. I think it's a very important component of what we're going to do to tell people what the opportunity is and how to get involved and engaged. And conversely, to work with these companies who are joining us, as well as the ones that aren't, to say these are the places that you can do very effective research into what companies are available to serve your supply chain needs, the same way that we've done to help them understand OFCCP compliance and effective outreach in those circumstances. So anybody want to take that question as well?
Well, I'll start. I don't want to dismiss the importance of your question, first of all, because it's incredibly hard, and we all have a limited resource pool, and that's usually focused on the suppliers we already have, right? So it's really hard to think of us as a marketing department to go out and maybe solicit relationships that we'll never need. And so the worst thing for me would be to go out, market, tell people we're open for business, and then not actually give them the opportunity to bid. So there's a balance there. We need to figure out how to do that. The other part of that is the vet-owned businesses have a categorization, so there are ways to find them. There's no way to find military spouse-owned businesses, and I want them. So how do I find them? That's another reason we're part of this coalition, to help with that. Very important question, and I hope he will help us solve.
I am going to help you solve that. That is part of what we're doing. And there are people in the audience here who are going to help us solve that, and I'll talk about that at the end as well. Anyone else? Okay.
Well, I think your question gets to the opportunity, the matchmake, right? You don't want everybody just going to a website. So we do a great deal of outreach in partnership with members of Congress, with the various uniform branches, various bases, the SBA, the DOD. So we're out in the various communities, and we try to advertise those opportunities. We hold supplier summits with our existing supplier base and ask them to bring in some of their colleagues who may not be suppliers to Lockheed, because it is a challenge. You do focus on your existing suppliers, but we do need to bring in more of those companies for their innovative ideas and products.
I'll add one other component to that too. We have a fantastic SBA partnership where we have many partners throughout the nation, the small business development centers, the veteran business outreach centers, the women's business development centers, the SCORE counselors, the PTACs that are working on patenting and technical assistance centers and so on. And if you're not connected with those local resources in your communities, you need to be, because they're going to be able to help connect to the large businesses in your communities as well.
And I will add that we can do more. Everyone can do more. We can always do more. But when you look at where it is that you want to do business, consider the company that you're doing business with. We do a lot on referrals, internal referrals. We do a lot in relationship management. So that is how we're going to start to find our veteran-owned businesses. A lot of our minority-owned businesses, women-owned businesses, and small businesses are also veteran-owned businesses. Just let us know that, make us aware of that, and that goes a long way to help.
All right.
An approach I want to toss this in. Your point's well taken, and 4 years ago the same thing was said in talent acquisition. I want to hire them, but I can't find them. So this market is large. It's large on the business side, it's large on talent acquisition side. Like my colleague from USAA said, it's hard to do a mass market program and create a false expectation. One of the approaches we've taken at Disney is this is one at a time. And it's one veteran at a time that we hire, it's one veteran supplier that we talk to. And really, and you're probably saying in your head right now, okay, Disney's a big company talking to one person. Well, you talk to one person enough every day and you get a pretty large pool. We're very concerned about the mentoring and the coaching, and once we get you in there, posturing you for success. And it goes back to that personal relationship with that potential supplier.
Right. I have an unusual approach that I'm going to take for a second, because I have a faculty member who's sitting in the audience here who teaches, and he said this is sort of the missing piece for us and how we can make sure that they understand what the opportunities are. Randy Blass, who teaches at Florida State University, can you mention something about how important this is and how you think individual veterans can make that one-on-one connection, or anything elaborated to that?
Yeah, this is absolutely the missing piece. We can educate them, we can motivate them, we can even help our veterans see that being an entrepreneur is continuing to serve. They serve the communities they live in. They're serving our country. They're creating jobs. They're serving other veterans. But it's that opportunity piece, and Mike Haney hit on it. You know, the ideas by themselves don't necessarily have the staying power for them to be successful business owners, but rather connecting them with opportunities, and not just financing their venture, which is kind of the knee-jerk place to go, but more of the business-to-business relationships and opportunities, and helping them just see that landscape. And very excited about this coalition and what it's going to bring to that equation.
Great. Other questions from the audience? We've got time for about one more. Well, one thing I am going to add then for a moment is that we have had absolutely tremendous success in our educational programs at Syracuse University. Our latest statistics that have come back from our research, going back out to our participants in all of our programs, are showing us that about 65% of all the people who have gone through our courses have started or are operating their own businesses. I've got a couple of business owners here who have been through those. About 92% to 93% are still in business several years later, which is an amazing rate. And I think it's going back to connecting to these resource networks and connecting to that ongoing technical assistance and training, maybe that mentality of the veterans who are willing to go back for further education and further opportunities. And I think when you look at those kinds of success rates, that giving them the opportunity to do business with large companies is going to inspire many others. Any of our veteran business owners who are in the audience want to say anything at all about your experience in business-to-business supply chains or education and training, anything at all that you'd like to add? Terrific. Yes?
Just a quick comment. As a small business owner, taking the time off to do those kinds of things, as intriguing and interesting as they are, it's tough. And it's expensive. And it's just something we need to consider as we look at how do we do continuing education.
So our distance education programs, in part, will be an important component of it, so that you can do those when and where you can. And that's one of the things that I think will develop well in this coalition, and I'm looking forward to being able to do that. Any last questions at all? I've got one more up here.
Yes, as a veteran-owned business, too, we're learning here in Washington, D.C. about government procurement services. And so I guess someone on the panel is going to be talking about that in the next round. But I think a lot of veterans would love to know how they can get involved in the supply chain management, too, to the federal government. So any thoughts you can add to that would be helpful.
So actually, I'll tell you that we're not going to focus on that at all. And the reason that we're not going to focus on that is there are a couple of folks who do that very, very well around the country, including in Maryland, and we can certainly put you in touch with those. This is an effort, I think, to do something a little different with the private sector that hasn't been done before, because nobody's ever focused on that with veterans in the past. It's always been focused on government opportunities. The VA's service-disabled veteran-owned small business certifications and other purchasing opportunities and preferences and things like that that exist. So although I think we'll point to those from this coalition, I think it's probably not something that we'll focus on at all in this coalition. A little bit different. Yes, one more.
Thanks. So I think this might be a question that maybe some of the veteran business owners could answer. Just speaking from the corporate mindset, what are some of the things outside of procurement that you would be looking at this coalition to help support you in your needs and as a veteran-owned business?
I can tell you that some of the things that veterans have told us are access to capital, opportunities to form business networks and learn from each other, mentoring from each other, things like back-end office services and understanding those. But there are others, veterans out here who own businesses. What else? Fred, what else did you need to know?
Well, I think there's also maybe an understanding piece. I mean, for a lot of our small business, especially a startup, perhaps we know that veteran business owners often struggle to get capital, to get lending because of the fact that we've moved every couple of years. A lot of guys that have underwater on houses, so their credit maybe because of the fact they had to move because of the military. So oftentimes you're struggling to get that startup capital or the growth capital. And on top of that, you come into a corporate supply chain and you guys say, great, we love you, can't wait to get you, this is fantastic, I love your product. 160-day terms, right? 180. So we're you know, because that's how a big corporate works, right? It's 90-day terms, 120-day terms. That's awesome. But for a small business, for example, who's trying to grow, to invest in the capital to make products and then wait 120 days after that to perhaps see the revenue is a very challenge. I would love to see a discussion of how we can shorten the time between payments, the accounts receivable challenges we have. Those kind of things would make it a lot easier for a lot of our small businesses to participate in your supply chains as opposed to being locked out. I mean, it's a lot of commitment to wait 120 days, if you will, for a lot of our small businesses, I think.
I think Craig I think Craig wants to do that, but I will tell you there are also some SBA programs related to this, working capital, other things like that. But Craig, did you want to add anything?
So representing the private guys, that is incredibly hard for us to do as a organization, as a large organization, as you can imagine. But what I love, and I'm going to quote my peer, is one veteran at a time, right? If we can come up with some way that says, because the first thing I do when you show up at my door is I do a financial analysis and you don't have any history, and my rules say I can't do business with you because I'm not taking the risk. But if at one business at a time, I can say, I'm going to mentor you and help you in this relationship. I'm willing maybe to invest some capital in your company to help you get started. I'm willing to do custom terms with you, just you, because of this relationship. You're no longer a supplier, you're a partner. But I love this concept. I can't do that in a portfolio that's 20% of my portfolio. But I can do that one veteran, one military spouse-owned business at a time. But that's going to have to be a partnership. And I think I love this coalition because I may not know how to do that with you, but I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn how to do that. And my promise to you at USA is one veteran at a time. We'll talk about it. And if it works, we'll do it. If it doesn't work, I got to move on to the next one.
Great. All right, and with that, we're actually out of time for this one, but we will come back to any last questions at the end. So thank you to the panel. I appreciate it very much. I'm going to welcome Kevin Preston to give us about 5 minutes on his work with Disney. So if you just stay up here, and I'm not sure which mic will work, but if you'll go ahead, you'll be all set. Okay. Thank you.
You know, the very nice thing is, I think you heard all I was going to say on the panel. So I'm not sure I need 5 minutes. You know, I want to try to frame this concept for you, because I mentioned it earlier. This is an environment we're dealing with veterans. And the environment has many elements to it. It has talent acquisition, it has diversity, it has supplier diversity, corporate social responsibility, all these things that blend into this component of the veteran space. I'm going to talk a bit about Disney. I'm not going to make it Disney-centric, but let me tell you a couple of things. We have a program called Heroes Work Here, which is the talent acquisition piece for Disney. It's focused on, to quote my colleague from USAA that quoted me, it's focused on one veteran at a time, hiring veterans in Disney and posturing veterans for success with employment. It is business agnostic as far as we're concerned. So if you want to work at USAA and you want help from Disney, you're going to get it. So it's very personal, one person at a time. We've hired over 5,000 veterans, one person at a time in a pretty short time period. The next piece of that, the CSR piece, we stepped into the space of saying, you know what? Businesses want to hire veterans, but not quite sure how. How can we assist in that? We started the Veteran Institute. In partnership with USAA, a complimentary one-day program whereby we teach companies, I'll say it again, complimentary. We teach companies how to build their own veteran hiring program. Because we know that veteran-owned companies are also 5 times more likely to hire veterans than non-veteran-owned companies. So going back to the first tenet of Heroes Work Here, and then jump into Heroes Supply Here, which integrates back to the employment of veterans. The reason I bring this up is this is not just one piece. It's not just supplier diversity. It's an integrated approach to looking at veterans and their environment. I talk about values a lot when I talk about veterans. I really think it's important because the distinguishing characteristic, I believe, and I never pit veterans against non-veterans, it's not us and them, but when you talk to somebody who says, I stand for something, I stand for integrity, I stand for ethics, I stand for courage, I stand for doing the right thing, and this is how I shall run my business. We had a panel at Disney, and we had buyers come on stage and say, tell us what makes a good supplier for the Walt Disney Company. And start going down various elements, and it's like, you know what, even Kevin can figure this out. What they said were the military values. What they said was, do what you're going to do. If you make a mistake, tell us you've made a mistake before the mistake explodes. Be accountable for your mistake. I looked at my little card that I pulled out. Remember this little card? I looked at that and said, that's the values of the military. How hard is this? This circles back to a proper business decision. We hire veterans because they are the best solution for a talent acquisition need, period. We source from veterans because they are the best solution for a sourcing need at the Walt Disney Company. It's a good business decision. It's as simple as that. And the veterans can back this up with what they've done and where they stand and how they live their lives. So from the Walt Disney Company, we are proud to be members of CVOB. I got to learn this acronym. Proud to be members of this and proud to say that we are sourcing from the veteran community. So thank you very much.
We really do have a great group of people here, so thank you for spending some time with us, Kevin. Next up, I'd like to welcome Peter Mahoney from SunTrust Banks. He's the Executive Vice President of Capital Markets and Regulatory Strategy. Peter, are you joining us?
Thank you. Do I get any applause? I'm sorry. Why don't you wait till I finish speaking? Anyway, I know it's a parade of people, and Barb Carson's more important than I am, so I'll try to keep my remarks brief. You know, SunTrust has joined the coalition thanks to the good folks at IVMF and our friends at First Data, and we're really grateful and honored and really humbled to be part of it. We're a big regional bank. We're one of the largest banks in the country, 4 million households, more than 500,000 business clients, which is why we're attracted to this coalition in particular. I thought I'd just spend a minute talking a little bit about our journey in terms of military and veterans. It really started at the bank as a grassroots effort. We had, like John, we had a number of teammates, we call our employees teammates, who started local affinity groups of veterans. And I'm based in Richmond, Virginia. John's in Atlanta. We had another group in Orlando. Our footprint in the Southeast just has a lot of veterans in it. And it grew to be a network of 10 different groups geographically. We put it together into an enterprise council, which I'm privileged to chair, that's sponsored by our CEO, Bill Rogers, and by our head of commercial banking, Mark Chansey. And we started with where a lot of people have started, with our own teammate employees. We joined Hiring Our Heroes. I see Ginny and some of my other friends from the chamber here. That's been a great initiative for us. We are going to be at SAC later this week, that conference, and we've roughly doubled our veteran hiring. We're not where USAA is, but very few companies are, and we're going to continue to work till we get to that double-digit number of teammate additions from the veteran ranks. We then moved on to community efforts. We have a program where we're taking loans, homes where we've had to foreclose or otherwise take the home back as a result of the foreclosure crisis, and we have teammates go out and refurbish those homes, and we give them away to disabled veterans working with the Military Warrior Support Foundation. That's been an unbelievably motivating event for the teammates at SunTrust who've been able to participate in that. A lot of us have been out, like we work with Home Depot and Lowe's, and we completely rebuild the house. And when the veteran family comes in, and it's just kind of mind-blowing how gratifying it is, and we're lucky to be part of that. But then we began to get interested in what we can do on the small business side. We are one of the largest small business lenders in the country. Access to capital is a theme that you've heard about, and we're one of the largest small business lenders, SBA lenders. I think we're largest in many of the markets that we serve in the Southeast. And we've been working with the SBA for years, but we really want to get engaged in this program and try to provide some of that advisory know-how that John was talking about. We're very excited. We're in discussions now to get it more engaged on the Boots to Business reboot, where we can bring our bankers in and have them actually engaging directly with veteran small business owners and get that kind of advisory mentorship that everyone's been talking about so much today. So it's really been a journey that's continuing to expand and get more and more exciting for us, and getting involved in the coalition is really just a tremendous thrill for us, and we're proud to be one of the financial services company that's serving as a founder. One other neat thing we'll do, and I'll close on this, is that I think that a couple of the businesses, we're doing our part at SunTrust. An idea that came up through our volunteer veterans network on May 21st, the Thursday before Memorial Day. We're a bank, so we're closed on Memorial Day. We're going to, as a 25,000 teammate bank, we're all going to observe a moment of silence, a moment of remembrance for a minute at 11 a.m. on Thursday, May 21st. We're going to be posting signs in all of our branches so that every teller, every call center, every mortgage loan or bank loan officer who's engaging with one of our clients, that's what we call our customers, will say, hey, respectfully, we're going to honor the men and women who made the ultimate sacrifice for their country. And we're trying to say something about who we are as a teammate network. And for the bank, it's really powerful because it's one time where we're all doing the same exact thing at the same time, and we're doing that to honor the men and women who have served our country. So again, I'm just thrilled and privileged. Thrilled and privileged to be part of this, just honored and humbled, and I want to thank Meg and Vivian and the rest of this team, Dr. Haney, and he's a Juris Doctor, James, for including us, and we're really grateful. Thanks.
All right, I have the privilege now to welcome to the stage one of our terrific partners, Barb Carson. Colonel Carson, as she answered her work phone the other day, because I called her at the Pentagon, to give a little bit of discussion on public-private partnerships. So welcome to the stage. Thank you, Barb.
Thank you, James. And I've been listening to the panels and the other discussions, and I have so much gratitude for what you're already committing to do and the questions that are being asked. If they don't get addressed here, I hope many of us will be here after to spend some time on that. And why are we so energized? I think it's because, like me, your personal values are intersecting with your professional abilities, and you're bringing it all to the table here. And that's what we're going to. I have some asks at the end for that I would like, that because I think you're the right people to ask. But I will share a little bit about what the Small Business Administration is bringing to this and why we're not doing it alone. And I'm telling you a little bit about us so that when you have a veteran come to you and say, gosh, I don't know how to, or I wish I knew, that you can say, I heard about that, it's SBA, and I really think that you should go see them. That's what I would ask. That's my first ask of you. I said I'd wait to the end. That wasn't true. So federal procurement, as James said, this is not the forum for it, but that is one of the 3 core pillars of the business that SBA does. So 3% of the entire federal spend is supposed to go to the service-disabled, veteran-owned businesses. That will be announced how we did last year in the coming weeks. That will, I believe, be some really good news for us. It has been a long road to get there, and some commitments from federal agencies that I'm proud to be one of. Second big pillar that we have is access to capital. It comes up all the time. Access to capital is not the answer to every business problem. So, but it is one of our focuses. To give you an idea, I would like to tell you a little bit about how much we're doing and exactly what we do, because we are not like SunTrust. We don't do direct lending. What we do is allow banks to take some risk by guaranteeing a percentage of that loan, that if something happens, that lender knows they're going to be reimbursed and get some of that capital back. So right now, for example, veterans for loans up to $350,000, SBA stands behind them 50%, and they pay no fee, no borrower fee. For $350K up to $5 million, SBA's with them from 50 to 85% of that loan, and that's huge savings. Up to $30,000 a vet is saving by getting SBA-backed loan. And I am proud of the banks who step in and make a commitment to join us there. So you'll find some misconceptions or some baggage that people bring and stereotypes about what makes a veteran business different than others, and they think particularly about what kind of money they need, how risky they are. And that is an area that we are investigating. There's not enough data for me. That would be one of my asks, is that with banks, I want to know more about veterans as a population. Street Shares, for example, is looking at this issue with us as well, and I need to know this. So I can tell you that it's not just small dollar loans. We are doing and seeing lending from the microloan level of $3,700 all the way up to $5 million. The loans that SBA is guaranteeing are averaging right now about $400,000. These aren't small businesses. And there's diversity in the kinds of business that they are too, because there's not a standard, this is what a vet-owned business looks like. Just like our commercial and non-vet businesses, it's retail, professional, scientific, construction, other services, manufacturing, accommodation and food services, and healthcare. Those are our top lending brackets on what we're seeing and what they call them next codes for the federal procurement, but those are the sectors that vets are in. The size of lending that SBA did last year was $775 million to veteran-owned businesses. And I should also mention that spouses, and I feel especially strong about this because I am one, and I know that entrepreneurship is an excellent answer to the challenges of moving all the time with an active duty spouse. We support them. They're eligible for the loans, the benefits that we give as well. So please keep that in mind when you spread the word about what's available. For you, as companies who are joining this coalition, some of the lending that we can do allows contract lines of credit and working capital. So we can make them have stronger capacity to be that good partner that you need in your supply chain. Money alone, like I said, is not the answer. So some of the technical training that needs to take place is something that we work with private partners to deliver. I briefly talked about, and I won't spend a lot of time on these, but I'd love it if you came up and we discuss it later. Boots to Business is where we reach out to transitioning veterans and also military spouses while they're still in uniform. That the hard question that gets asked, am I ready for business? Do I have the money? Do I have the training, the business knowledge? Do I speak the language that a lender's going to understand? What do I need to know? And sometimes one of our performance metrics isn't always going to be, did we successfully help a vet get their business going right there after the training program, because many are not ready. So, as I said though earlier, we've trained 25,000, and I hope to be able to tell you in about a year how they're doing. With IVMF, First Data, and others, we are offering programs afterward, specifically for veteran women. That's the VWISE program, Veteran Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship. The next one, it will be here in Washington, D.C. with a very special guest that I can't reveal right now. And that I'm very much looking forward to. 3-phase program, do some prep, fly yourself here, the rest is free, and then ongoing mentorship. And as you know, as vets, being a part of a cohort, a team, is important. And I'm really happy to be partners with IVMF, who keeps that commitment and mentors all the way through. For service-disabled vets, the Entrepreneurship Bootcamp for Veterans. It's at multiple universities. I think we're almost up to a dozen, correct, James? 10? Okay, almost. We're going to achieve that. But this is not something that you throw money at it and you expand it because it's a great idea. This takes commitment, and it's one that IVMF has kept a promise to, and the participating universities. It's an amazing program. As you said, James, 56% are in business within a year. And I transposed my numbers. Okay, that's a lot better. Thank you. And the mortality of those businesses, they look fantastic. So I'm pleased with that. Reboot, we talked about, we're going to catch veterans, military spouses, no matter what era, no matter where they are. SBA is everywhere. With our Veteran Business Outreach Centers, our district offices in 68 states. 68? I added states too. 68 offices across all the United States. And booths to businesses at 165 military installations. I know I got that one right, all around the world. We're in the European theater and Asia as well. So someone mentioned earlier distance learning. Well, literally distance. We're in person long distance, but we also have things online available for many of these programs as well. So finally, I do want to talk about what I'm asking of you. Please, we'd like you to pay folks on time. So the supplier pay initiative that SBA runs, you may not, as your corporation, may not be eligible to participate in it for whatever reason, but you can, in spirit, do this. That within 15 days of receiving a valid invoice, you pay your supplier. I think that is a commitment that we can make. So whether you join the SBA program or you do it on your own as a business value that you are committing to your supply chain, I'd be grateful, and I'd like to hear feedback on how you will do that. Come and see us when we talk. I heard the list, where our vet businesses. Well, SBA is trying to bring them to the corporate structure and sector by doing things on the American Supplier Initiative. There are 10 of those that SBA is hosting. We do some matching profiling to make sure that those procurement or contracting decision makers that you send are going to find candidates who are ready to make the deal and serve you well. So we've got 10 between now and November. One of them is going to be specifically focused on veterans. Please follow up with me and I'll give you the locations. For us getting the word out, that is a challenge, and that's one of the goals of this coalition. I would like to see you when we focus on National Veteran Small Business Week. It's the week right before Veterans Day. This is our chance to elevate veteran entrepreneurs. You can talk about those that are in your supply chain. You can go to your local community and really show those business-to-consumer businesses where it's a good opportunity to show what they can do. And for corporations who are doing some business with government and also on the private sector, the National Veteran Small Business Engagement will be in Pittsburgh this year, November 17 and 19, and it's another opportunity for us to really get vet businesses in front of you, and you can see what we've got. So those are my asks. Come join us. Be a part of our events. I've got one tonight, right after this. Marriott, for example, has partnered with the International Franchise Association's organization called VetFran. VetFran, these are franchisors who are giving either free training, reduced fees for veteran-owned franchises. Those two together have come together to do an event tonight to pitch to vets. What can we do with you to partner in things like that? SBA, we're pretty agile for being a federal agency, so if you have ideas on ways that we can work with you and get the word out to get your things done, let us know. Another one, I'm going to talk about street shares again. Access to capital, I don't think I own the market. Peter and SunTrust, they don't own everything either. They're angel investors crowdsourcing. Street shares is another platform focused on vets. There are lots of ways to get money, some more risky. And so this is a conversation that vets need to have. You might be able to get money, but is it the best decision for your business at that time? That's the kind of thing that we do. So I hope that you have put up with this long survey of what's out there, how we can connect, and I look forward to talking with you after. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Barb. I appreciate that. So I have the privilege now of wrapping this up and thanking some people, but also giving a call to action that will involve many of you in the audience. And I want to also talk a little bit about affiliate members and others as well. So first off, thank you to First Data. Thank you very much, Frank Bisagano, for supporting our effort and for sharing the talents of Dr. Vivian Greentree, Meg O'Grady, Brandon Willits, and many others with the coalition, and for supporting a Center of Excellence on Veteran Business Ownership at the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. We think we're going to be able to make a big difference in veteran business ownership through this work, and thank you very much for that. We started working on this initially with First Data, Disney, Fleishman Hilliard, USAA, and Enterprise Holding, and I want to thank each of them for their ongoing work, particularly a couple of folks who aren't here, Wayne Shanks, Jeff Grant, and some who are, Debbie Akins, Kevin Preston, and several others. Many other companies have seen the value of this and have joined us as a result of that. Probably no one at the beginning did more work for us than Fleishman Hilliard's Aaron Hazard and Crystal and Neil. They helped us put together this event. Thank you very much for all that you did to help us with that. So, I also want to thank the panelists and speakers who we had here, the panelists and speakers from First Data, Walmart, American Express, USAA, Disney, SunTrust, and the Small Business Administration. I very much appreciate the time that you put into preparing remarks and spending talking with our members and with our guests today. Thank you also to the member companies who did not present today due to our time constraints and panel sizes. We didn't want to make this any more than 2 hours. That's BP America, KKR, Verizon, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, Foundations Hiring Our Heroes, and others. Thank you for being here and supporting. Now I want to get to the hard part. This was the easy part. The launch seemed like it was hard to get to this day, but it was actually the easy part. The hard part will be working groups. I want to ask people to volunteer to help us, and you can volunteer afterwards. I'm not asking you to raise your hand right now. But the 4 pillars of this coalition really are increasing opportunities in private sector supply chains. That's the first. Increasing opportunities for Main Street businesses. That's the second. Increasing employment opportunities in small business for veterans and families. That's the third. And I actually think that's one that many of our partners can help with. For instance, I have Tony Odierno here from the 100,000 Jobs Mission and JP Morgan Chase, and there is an effort there to think about how to translate all the learning that those 190 some companies that you've heard have hired over 220,000 veterans into the supply chains that we're talking about here, and I hope to be able to talk more with him about that. In fact, some of the people who are here today are on a panel next week to talk about that at a coalition meeting. We also need to focus on increased access to capital, and there are several people in the room who will be joining us on that. We need a certifications working group because we need something that's transparent, flexible, meets the needs of the private sector, and is something different than the service-disabled veteran-owned small business certification that VA offers. There have been many opportunities to talk about spouse-owned businesses and certifying spouse-owned businesses and understanding which are those, and there are members of this coalition who are affiliate members who are going to help us with that, including ID.me and Blake Hall and being able to do that, and including Rosie's Network and others. So thank you for that. I want to work on an affiliate members working group, and I've asked Mark Rockefeller of Street Shares to head up this group for us and to think about how we can focus on what affiliate members bring to this that is different than the large corporate members who have large supply chains or who have large media reach. So we want to focus on that with Street Shares. And in addition, Street Shares as a founding affiliate member is our first and only non-bank lender, and they're doing really great work related to access to capital. Mark, I saw you raising your hands or shifting in your seat there. Mark's right there. So thank you, Mark, for doing that. We have many affiliate members who have been working with us on this, and although this event was focused on the coalition members, in part to make sure that we were generating a large amount of coverage for this, in part because that's where the supply chain opportunities are, and in part because that's where the media outreach and reach are. But I want to say thank you to the folks who have helped us so far as founding affiliate members. Stephanie Brown from Rosie's Network and Leona, who's here with us today from Rosie's Network. Blake Hall and Holly Tennant from ID.me, Dan Frank and Jennifer Roseman from Vet Advisor, Matt Pavlicek and Mimi Lohan from Victory Media and Novoba, thank you for that. Davey Leghorn from the American Legion, and I hope I'm not missing anybody in this as I was working on this on a plane and making sure I was getting all the right names. We want to focus on new members. Large companies with significant supply chains is a big focus for us. So your partners, the people who you're working with, please come talk to them and connect them to Meg and I. And we want to be looking at large companies with significant marketing power, media influence, and mainstream reach, because we need to raise awareness by veteran, making sure that we are supporting veteran-owned businesses and that we're doing the kinds of things that will enhance military, family, and veteran-owned businesses while they're in service and after they transition out of service to improve their opportunities, but also because we know from some of our data recently that the entrepreneurs who are veterans or family-owned are hiring veterans at a higher rate. Our latest data show that 45% of the firms who have come out of our entrepreneurship programs are employer firms. That's compared to 20% of firms in the market broadly that are employer firms. So it's over double. And they are hiring on average about 4.5 people per business, and over half of those are veterans or family members. So this is a big employment opportunity in addition to a business opportunity, and that will continue to contribute to the middle class in America. So I want to make sure that we're doing that. For those of you who are willing to work on that, please talk to Meg O'Grady or myself. The last thing I want to do is thank my IVMF team, and I'd like them to come up front so that you can know who they are. The reason I want you to know who they are, though, is because they're not just the people who are printing your name tags. They're not just the people who are escorting you up here. These are the people who are running the programs that are educating veterans around the world. And these folks are responsible for having educated in the past year over 30,000 veterans and family members. And they are the ones who are going to enter your supply chains, who are going to be these Main Street businesses. So I have Mike Shennick. Mike runs our VetNet program and the Boots to Business program that we do in conjunction with SBA. Tina Capral, who runs our residency-based programs, EBV families. I have Laura Cooper, who runs our Veteran Career Transition program. And that's a program that teaches and trains certifications, 35 different industry standard certifications, supported 100% by JP Morgan Chase, including paying for the industry standard exam. So if you have veteran employees or spouse employees who are post 9/11, as these veterans are eligible for the Veteran Career Transition program at absolutely no cost to them. We are training this year around 3,500 folks, and we've had over 3,000 go through those programs. Megan Florkowski, who runs our VWISE, Veteran Women Igniting the Spirit of Entrepreneurship program. That's our women veterans program that we do in conjunction with the Small Business Administration. And I think we have about 1,600 almost who have been through that program now, and they're actually succeeding at higher rates than our other programs, although they're starting up a little bit slower. They're hiring more people than our other programs. So veteran women and family member women are doing amazingly well. Even one of our folks who competed on Shark Tank and earned an investment from Damon John, Christina Guerrero, recently. Michelle, who actually did all of the planning and organization with this, along with the team back home, who did all of the graphic signs, agendas, materials, and everything else that were in your folders. Thank you, Michelle, for that. And Candace, who's one of our students who is getting a great education by being here, I hope. So that's the team who makes all of this possible. And then I want to add one other firm, Scoutcoms, and it's a recommendation as well. Scoutcoms has been instrumental in the planning of the coalition media and outreach strategy, and they are a veteran-owned business, and they employ veterans and veteran family members. Fred Wellman is standing right over here, and I think half a dozen members of his team are on the side over here as well. Fred, Laura Jenkins, Brian Wagner, Margaret Clevenger, who also, by the way, is a former IVMF student intern, and many others. So now that you know the people who are behind the curtain, when we go next door to Wolfgang Puck, you can talk with them about the programs and educational opportunities and more. So with that, I'm going to adjourn to The Source by Wolfgang Puck. It's next door. We're going to walk out this direction, and my team members are all stationed in this area. I would like to add one more thing. Vivian, anything that you want to say as a member of the coalition and founding group, or you just want to wave it? Fantastic. Meg, anything from you?
I think we also have Military One Click here as an affiliate member.
We absolutely do. Jennifer Pilcher, I'm sorry I left you off the list. Military One Click is another one of our founding affiliate members. Thank you very much. I appreciate all the work that you've done so far. All right, fantastic. With that, we'll adjourn.